So, we're going to talk about Slow Horses Season 2, the first episode, and there will be a few spoilers, I'm afraid, if I'll warn you if we need to. But let's start with you, Gary. Jackson Lamb. Filthy, drunk, fun to play, right?
No, enormously fun to play. Yeah, he's not the most... You asked me earlier at the matinee.
The dirty little secret is we did this once before, but this is the primetime show.
This is the evening performance. About him being slovenly or obnoxious, or is it, could I think of others? But I was thinking about it at lunch. I mean, he is obnoxious. He sort of publicly humiliates people and enjoys it. He does it knowingly, not. But, I mean, really, if you look at the career, they've all been a bit, haven't they? They've all been a bit sort of...
You have played some obnoxious characters before, that's
Yeah, quite a few, I think.
Are you drawn to that?
Well, I guess I must, but no, it's, you know what, it's just what comes in. Honestly and truly, I mean, there's a few things I've sort of chased. There's a few things I've wanted and didn't get, and a few things I have, but yeah, what? There's quite a few of those. But it's what sort of comes in over the years, really. It just comes across the desk. It's nothing it's not, you can engineer a career to a point. But,
yes.
But Jackson Lamb, it's wonderful to come in and insult my fellow thesps here.
As Jackson says, they're a bunch of losers, but they're your losers. And you enjoyed working with these losers, right?
Well, I must say that it's been one of the best jobs I've had. I think that Apple have treated us very well, and we have good material. We have great crew. We've had fantastic directors. Our main Danny Cohen is our mainstay cameraman, and it has been an absolute pleasure coming to work every day and working with these people, and it's been a terrific experience. And we've had a break. We're now going back. Not Dustin, of course, but
spoiling alert.
But we are. But we're going back to do season 4, and it's I'm really looking forward to it. Working with these guys again. Yeah, so it's been.
Do we know why...
Sorry, Dustin. He's so sensitive. It's got to be 3, isn't it?
We'll get there, I'm sure. Do we know why Jackson Lamb is in Slough House?
If you ask Mick Heron, the writer of the book, he wouldn't tell you.
He wouldn't?
He couldn't tell you.
He couldn't tell you?
No, there's things that sometimes the writer, our head writer, one of many, Will Smith.
Not the Will Smith.
Not.
Slightly funnier, right?
It's almost a year, isn't it? Tomorrow night. No, not that Will Smith, the other Will Smith, who writes our show. And he's asked things of Mick, and Mick says, I don't know, I can't tell you. Yeah. I haven't filled that bit in yet. You know?
Yeah. Are you curious?
My own feeling is that he was sick of the bureaucracy and just the hypocrisy of, as we all are, really, as we slowly peel back the onion,
Because despite being slovenly, rude, obnoxious, he is still a very good spy, as we even see in this season. He's very good at the act of spy work.
Yes, he is, despite having completely burned out.
Yeah.
And probably cares more than most.
Yeah.
And is incredibly loyal, and certainly to his rejects, his losers, his,
Yeah. Well, one of the other themes of the show is that, this group of people, they're all in Slough House, which, as we know, is not the place you particularly want to be. But there's relationships within this, right? Saskia, we were talking about earlier the relationship between Catherine Standish and Jackson Lamb. This curious, they evidently have a past, right? They obviously. So there's one. You have or your character has a relationship with. I've forgotten his name. The young blonde man who.
Jack,
who in the first season.
Sorry,
River, who. Doesn't do very well on his opening training thing and then gets sent to Slough House, but he's sort of one of the protagonists. You have this sort of almost motherly relationship with him, perhaps?
Well, I think Catherine's interesting because she's supposedly Jackson Lamb's secretary, and she's fallen from grace. She used to work for the head of MI5, which she holds dear to her heart. In fact, we had to do sort of little snippets of filming before we came in to do the Q&A, and we were all asked, what song would you listen to get into character? So I was thinking this morning, and I was thinking, I'd actually do. One of them would be "I Will Always Love You" from Whitney Houston. Because I was thinking about Charles Partner and how she holds him dear to her heart always, and I can imagine her. She puts him on this massive pedestal, and it's part of her running condition till series 5, book 5, I think.
Do we want to do that, Whitney Houston
No,
or Dolly Parton?
we don't.
Finish it now. No.
And another one was "I Walk the Line" because she's living with her sobriety. And then they asked, what emojis would you have for your characters? And this is my point, really, is that I think if there was an emoji for a St. Bernard, that Catherine would be that. Because I imagine she had a little barrel of brandy round her neck. And she looks after everybody.
Yeah.
And she has this weird relationship with alcohol. And she's very interesting and complicated.
Mine was the wind blowing, that emoji.
Yes.
Well, that's due to your flatulence in this season.
And I also thought...
We discussed that earlier, but that would be a pretty good...
And also, they asked for 3 emojis. Mine would be a St. Bernard dog, if there was one, which is quite a good emoji, actually, isn't it? And a chess piece and an iron. For iron, 'cause she's a bit OCD.
You're playing the...
Yeah.
As in the Iron Lady, or...?
No, just is very neat. Everything's very tidy at iron. She irons a lot.
What were you going to say, Dustin? We're interested.
Oh, just talking of flatulence, you gave us all a fart in a jar for a present. Do you remember?
You're going to have
not
to...
a real fart.
You're going to have to explain this, because that sounds...
It was a glass jar with a little...
Pink.
It's called...
Fluffy fart.
Yeah. That definitely wasn't worth bringing up again, was it?
There we go, rule of 3. You can tell this was done after lunch, right? This panel. And Dustin, we have a relationship brewing, or in the first season it's brewing, and it's now a little bit more Louisa and Min getting together, and as evidenced in this episode, sort of still together. That seems like one of the interesting dynamics of this season. As we've discussed, you die, or your character dies in this, but it drives
It's a good death, that.
Louisa.
That was one of my favourite scenes. They asked us again, when you asked me questions, like, what was your favourite scene? One of mine was our domestic in the flat, just before I go off for my fateful cycle ride. And just that chance to sort of...
We both just said how relatable that scene was. We both, in our own relationship, you know, it was so well written, that scene.
Yeah, it felt like a natural fight,
Yeah.
right? It felt like a fight couples have.
Yeah.
And then he went off and got drunk
And died.
and died.
It's just nice to see that kind of played out, especially mixed with the, you know, in a spy show, just having a real domestic.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
nice.
Yeah. And Christopher, you have or Roddy has this relationship with another new character from this season. There's she's
Shirley Dander.
who you can't tell if you really like her, but I get a sense your character does like her a little bit, right?
I think with all the other slow horses in Slough House, he just tolerates everyone to varying degrees and their incompetence.
Because he thinks he's the one, the only one there who isn't a fuck up.
He doesn't think that he knows that.
I think that's what's so great about the series, is that we all think
Yeah.
that we're the most competent
Yeah.
out of anyone.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and some evidently more than others.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, objectively.
I mean,
But subjectively.
Louisa does seem like a pretty good spy.
Yeah, I think she is pretty good. Yeah, thanks. I'm number one. Yeah.
Her fuck up was, you know, a tail gone wrong, right? That it doesn't
Yeah.
seem, in the scheme of MI5, that doesn't seem. I mean, River made Stansted Airport close down. That seems a bigger deal.
Yeah.
It was a pretty serious tale, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think we've revealed it yet in the series. I think that's going to come out in season 4 or
We'll
something.
find out a bit more. Kadif Marcus is the new boy in this.
Yes.
In this, and he similarly is sort of paired up in a way in various sense. But how did it feel, you coming in a little bit newer than some of these?
Yeah, it's quite nice because, well, he only steps up because someone exits, which is quite nice. But, sorry. But yeah, again, he does the bare minimum when it comes to conversation with his colleagues. He just sort of wants to be on his phone gambling.
Yeah.
But he's actually a very competent spy and very physical, so it's quite nice to just have that bubbling underneath. Because, dealing with Louisa when she's clearly in the depths of grief, he's a typical man who doesn't really know what to say, but also, what do you say when you've got a gun pointed at you and your mate's grieving? So yeah, those things were really nice to bash out towards the end of the season.
Ultimately, it's an underdog story, right? Of all of these people, does anyone? I mean, the idea of people driving. Not Jackson. I don't think Jackson knows that he thinks he's ever getting out of Slough House. But the rest of your characters is ultimately this idea that, and maybe yours, Saskia, doesn't. But the rest of you guys feel like if I do something right, maybe I'll get out of this hell, right?
Do you remember that bit in series 1 where Taverner turns to Standish and says, you know, well, you could have come back to the park if you'd done what I'd asked or something. And she says, and Standish turns to Taverner and says, well, why would I want that? And she, I think, like Lamb, totally understands the hypocrisy of where the park comes from sometimes, and is really jaded by it and fed up of it, and as well as being very proud to serve the country. I think Catherine's conflict, you know, she's working in Slough House, which is so tedious and boring, because basically they just check parking tickets and council lists, and I mean it's very, very tedious work. But
Apart from when she's playing chess against Russians to save the country.
yes, well, she realises that not enough is being. She's putting things together when everyone's all around over the place, and also she's worried that River might be in danger.
Yeah. Which he does appear to be throughout both seasons.
Yes, he does, doesn't he?
The thing is, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily. I mean, I'd put them down. I mean, with River, for instance, it's sort of, I see a potential. There's baggage there because of the old man,
Yeah.
David Cartwright, and so he's connected, and that fuels some of that.
Yeah, his granddad is basically the former head of
Yeah.
MI5.
Yeah, he's a
He was first desk.
He was first desk, but you know, I do see potential in River, and that's why I ride him hard and tease him, and it's tough love kind of.
Okay.
But I think it's fair to say that it doesn't mean necessarily because they're at Slough House that they're all useless as spies.
Presumably, if they were, they'd be booted out the whole thing.
Yeah, and you know, a tale that went wrong, leaving.
File on the train.
Yeah, you did.
Top secret
You
file.
did leave a top secret file on the train. Yeah. Well, apart from dust.
Got off the train last week.
But you know, I mean, Ho's at Slough House because no one could stand him at the MI5. But he's brilliant at what he does. Louise is terrific at what she. You know, it doesn't mean that just like completely across the board that they're incompetent.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you mentioned Cartwright. I mean, the fourth season's based on Spook Street, which you get a bit of David Cartwright's story, right? That's
Yeah.
I feel like we'll understand a little bit more of that relationship and maybe why Jackson Lamb gives him such tough love.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of you know at the end of season 1 that is he forces me into a position to carry out that hit, and then once I've done it and sit in the car, he then says to me, well, let's hope they don't find out. To which I say, well, there's only you and me in this car. How would they find it? You know, so he suddenly, that is, I think, with all that he went through, and you find out a little bit more here in season 2, what happened in Berlin. That was I think that's the straw that broke the camel's back. I think for Lamb, and that's why he has such hatred towards the senior Cartwright Senior.
Is it good or bad timing that the baddies in season 2 are Russian?
It's interesting, isn't it, that we have that season 2 features bad Russians. How novel!
You presumably would have been filming this as they were invading Ukraine.
Yeah, it felt a little odd. Yeah.
Because in the past, we've always had nations, in the Middle East, terrorists, etc. But sometimes they were unnamed countries. This is very much the Russians are still the bad guys. Did you think about that?
Yeah, I think we were aware of it, weren't we? It was odd doing a piece about bad Russians, and then you see it happening in
Well, I mean, look, the turmoil, since the wall came down, and it's never really gone away. Fake news and the way it's just so complicated and chaotic, and it didn't feel unusual or strained, or it felt very
that it's always been there
yeah.
in the background. Yeah.
I mean, the patience, the sleepers are cicadas, and so forth. There's something. There's something about the Russians in this that's almost quite spooky given what's going on, but I guess that's what the whole season's about, right? I said this earlier, but I'll repeat it again, that one of the things I love most about this show is how British it is, and you can smell the streets of Soho and so forth. I think that's probably why this audience likes it. It feels local. You just talk to us again in that sense of filming all around. Min's driving up the Edgware Road on his bicycle. We're right smack bang in the middle of the city for this. You're sort of in the heart of London, talking about this. Maybe one of you guys can talk about that.
Dustin was on a bike for the most part. But I was actually coming back from a set one day, which we were filming in field, and I saw Dustin on his bike.
Do you know how many times I bumped into you over like the past 3 weeks? You're just randomly cycling somewhere.
It's like, where's Wally?
Yeah.
You trying to stay in character even though you're dead?
I mean, I do cycle around London on a bike, and
What's a unicycle?
penny farthing.
What I love about it is how grubby it is. Not only Slough House, but London is grubby, and it's all a bit, doesn't quite work, and the buses are the grotty ones, they're not the flash double-deckers, and I love the way the show has captured that, and if you are English and you live here, you just know it, don't you? It's not like the Richmond of Ted Lasso, which is a little bit chintzy and nice.
Yes.
A bit competitive then.
Table service in the pub. There's no table service in most
No,
pubs
exactly.
in London.
I love the grottiness of it. I like, because I was born in London, live in London, and it's so much of it doesn't quite work. And I think they've really captured it in the lighting and the.
Dickie Bow's pawn shop in
Exactly.
Soho, the sort of the underbelly, right, which there still are elements of.
Yeah, and also the bus service from, the train doesn't, so they have to put replacement buses. That's so typical of
I wouldn't
English
have put my
transport.
hand down a side of a bus looking for a phone, though, on one of those. You'd find some things you don't want to find.
I always thought, it wasn't until recently I thought, did Dickie put that phone there? I've always thought it was Dickie's last breath kind of thing. And I wonder now.
What, it might have fallen out of his pocket.
No, his assassin typed in and put it down there. Because I go off on it's a distraction. I wonder if it was just by them,
Now, if anyone was to be able to find that answer out, I imagine it would be you.
It would be me. I should know that, shouldn't I?
Whether it's Will or Mick or something.
No, it's just something that occurred to me recently. I just thought, that's the trouble with it's a bit late now. Isn't it? It's all. It does have that thing though. It always amazes me. When the train service stops in England and they say, leaves on the line. We still get that, don't we? We live in a country that rains and it snows, and then they go points frozen at Bethnal Green, and you go, we still can't work this out, can we? That the whole southern region comes to a standstill because there are damp leaves on the line at New Malden.
Yeah?
It's still like that, isn't
Yeah, and I still miss that.
it? You miss it?
Yeah, I miss that.
Yeah.
Don't you? You live in the States. Does making Slow Horses make you miss New Cross or London at all?
No. I miss Palm Springs.
You've changed.
Yes, I have. I've come a long way.
Earlier we were talking about how the show each season is filmed or directed by one person. James Hall in the first season and Jeremy Lovering in the second. I wonder, we talked about how you're sort of filming this as a 6-hour movie. You've worked now with Saul Metstein on the third. What do these different directors bring to it? Can you break down the difference perhaps between James and Jeremy and Saul in terms of their approach?
Well, it's like any director. We've all worked with different directors. They have their own quirks and ways of working, and you just have to kind of, basically, you're asked as an actor, you're always asked to, you arrive and you go, oh, they're a little neurotic, they're very confident, and you adjust, don't you? You just have to tune into a frequency. So in that sense, I think we're all used to working with, we've all worked.
Do you think when the director takes over on the second episode, they're a little bit sometimes hesitant to sort of impose themselves too much because they're like, this is already on its, it's in motion, and they're sort of slightly cautious. I don't know. I wonder. Yeah, it's quite a hard job to.
Interestingly, what makes a big difference for me is the DOP, the first AD, and the director. Actually, they're like sort of little triumvirate. And on the first series, we had Danny and James Hawes, and I can't remember the name of the first. The very different style of running a set and working on the set. And then when we came to Jeremy, he had a different DOP and a different first, and there was a very different energy between them. And even though the directors are very different and the story's different, and I know they made choices with Series 2 to make it very hot, which was great, because then you saw Slough House is not equipped for any extreme weather, whether it's cold or hot, it's just miserable, which I loved. I loved all those little details. But working with a new director, we were also working with a new first and a new DOP, and that brings lots of other different things with it, actually. It's never...
Do you think we see that on screen in any sense, any of those differences?
Well, they were trying to tell a different story, weren't they? So in season 2, you can see the particles in the air, you can see the dust and the heat and the different sort of chaos, isn't it?
I do think you can see the personality of each director in each season, for sure, especially because we know the directors quite well. I won't say too much more about what I think of each one, but yeah, I do. No, because it feels like I'm trying to break down their personalities. But
who did you really think?
Okay. Yeah.
A different sense of chaos in each season seems like that seems like.
I think also I like to be directed, and there's it's over the course of my career, I always think that good directing is knowing when not to say something, where something is cooking and you let it happen, but I enjoy being directed, and I think a lot of the directors are a little hesitant. A new director coming in is a little hesitant because we've played the characters, and most people, if you cast well, it's they can walk and talk at the same time. I can worry about something else, you know what I mean? So they tend to leave you alone, and even though we know the people now after 3 seasons, it's nice to have a little tweak and a nudge in it, and a reminder of the director coming in and wanting to shape, shaping something. I like that.
Well, because also you don't really rehearse stuff on this. You just turn up and you do it. So you can trust your instinct. You've been cast, and you assume that I'm doing the right thing. But it's nice to be guided a bit and encouraged and, like I say, tweaked. But it's otherwise you just sort of like you're sort of guessing half the time. But no one said anything. I'm sort of getting away with it.
I mean, they killed you off, so
I think it's all right. Great.
I mean, they killed your character off.
All right.
Gary, you recently said that you'd be happy to go out as Jackson Lamb and hang it up. Is that because of the quality of Slow Horses? Or you just bored and want to stay in Palm Springs?
Because I'm bored.
Bored and want to stay
When
in
a
Palm
man is
Springs.
bored of Palm Springs, a man is bored of I've been doing this thing now for 45 years. 45 years. I was drunk for half of it. That's another story. I'll save that for my one-man show. My Vegas years. Ahead of me. No, I've been doing it a long time. I've worked with some terrific people. I think I've had an enviable career. I've had a good run. This, at my age, I'm 65 in 2 weeks, so, no. Please.
You do a fart, Gary, they'll clap.
What?
Do a fart, they'll clap.
And I feel very privileged, very lucky to be in a show, and it's got a great pedigree. The books are terrific, the writing is good, the characters are fun. I get, all the characters are very interesting, and working with these guys, and I feel very lucky to be doing it, and I just kind of feel, we're on the air as long as Apple want us to be on the air. There are book 6, book 7, it has a life.
Yep. It could go on for a while.
And if it went on for a while, I'd be very privileged, and then I'd be, I don't know if I want to be on a movie set when I'm 75.
But you are going back to filming season 4 next week, right?
Yeah.
So season 3 to come, season 4 after that. So that's a good place to wrap this up. Kadif, Christopher, Rosalind, Dustin, Saskia, Gary.